Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Jason Fung. I'm thrilled to invite you to the Fasting and Longevity Summit 2.0 that I'm co hosting with Dr. David Jockers and Dr. Joseph Antoon, with over 40 top experts to share their best insights and strategies. This next video is an example of some of the great interviews that we did together for this event. This is a life-changing opportunity to discover more about this ancient transformative practice that can really boost your health and even slow down aging. The event is completely free, but you do have to register to get full access. So click on the link and join me, and let's take charge of our health together.
Well, thanks for joining us here, Megan. For those that don't know, Megan and I have worked together for, oh boy, probably like 10 or 12 years. It's been it's been quite a while. We started, our sort of journey together in the office and with the intermittent fasting, and it's probably 2014 or so that we started. And Megan was very instrumental in bringing a lot of these ideas that I had to the patients and really leading them through their fasting journey, and probably has more experience than anybody else in getting people to succeed. And I think that's really one of the things that is important, and what I want to discuss more uh, in a minute is sort of not just the knowledge of what is fasting and the benefits and the risks and so on, but also how to actually do it. And I think that's where the rubber really hits the road, and that's where you're really an expert, Megan. And also, the issue being, um, you know, how do you get people to do it? Because it's not enough to just want to do it, but actually doing it. It's like exercise, right? So everybody knows you should exercise, but actually getting people to exercise is a huge other problem. And that's where, Megan's really excelled. She built a, very successful business, the fasting method, to help people with it. And it actually has various components. And wrote a best-selling book on intermittent fasting for women. So maybe you can just take us through a little bit of your journey, and then we'll get into the specifics of sort of how the fasting method helps people sort of achieve their goals and do what they set out to do.
Yes. So for people listening, if I can do this, anyone can do this. It is, it's unbelievably simple to fast, but there are some nuances and there's a transformation that has to happen. And that's where the fasting method can come into play to helping people with that journey. But like Jason said, I was in my late 20s. My poor dietary habits over the years caught up with me. I suddenly gained a lot of weight after being someone who was always super skinny. I had these conditions called fatty liver and PCOS at a young age that no one really understood why I had them, because I was quote unquote so skinny. But then I was not skinny. And then I also started to have blood glucose control issues and an A1C of 6.4, and got sort of labeled in that pre-diabetic range. And my doctor said, "You've got a few months to lose weight or I'm going to put you on metformin," and you know how the story goes. Um, so just the stars aligned, and I overheard Jason talking about fasting with patients, and I hung around in the back of the room and listened, and that was it. My life had changed. And it was a journey. I learned a lot along that journey for myself. I had to not just change how I ate, but my relationship with food. And I was fortunate to get great results and then to be able to help others along their journeys as well. When it comes to this, there's really three parts to it, I think. There's some nuances with fasting. And that's why working with a fasting coach who has experience can help shorten that journey. Like if you're a perimenopausal woman or a menstruating woman, if you're a man in your 50s or 60s who's actively trying to put on muscle mass while losing body fat, there's definitely fasting and nutritional strategies in these different scenarios that can really help expedite the weight loss and the metabolic health benefits. Um, but so much of it, and what we've really learned over the last decade, is that it's a real transformation that has to happen. Our habits, our mindset, our relationship with food. And, I always share with our members that in 6 months, I've lost all kinds of fat, I reversed all kinds of disease. And I then had to really sort of figure out my relationship with food. Jason and we wrote a book called Life in the Fasting Lane with our good friend Eve Mayer. And Eve wrote the sentence, she realized food was her best friend. And I don't know why it hit me a decade later after I started my journey, but food was my best friend. I had to learn how to celebrate, not necessarily always with food. I had to learn how to comfort myself through taking baths, connecting with friends, going for walks, rather than leaning into food. And I realized, this is really what is key for our members, our participants, people who are out there looking for change, trying to figure out this transformation, adjust their habits. And that's so much what we do. And then, of course, accountability is just really important. I again joke with our team. I've been a lone wolf, my whole life. I've not really felt like I needed support so much. And then I went through my journey with this, and we immediately started the clinic. And I realized not only was I providing so much support and guidance to our patients, but they were providing me with that peer community that helped me be accountable. And that's why, it's been 13 years. I started this journey. I got diagnosed with this diabetes at my 27th birthday, my annual physical. I just turned 40. The other month, and I've had no fatty liver. I've had excellent weight control. I've lost a ton of body fat, and I'm a new mom when this was something that I was told would never be possible for me. Now I've got this little baby boy who's about to turn 1 year old in the next week. So there's so much that I owe a lot to our community for helping to keep me accountable. And I see it every day. And it's so
Yeah.
great to see people who are like me, these lone wolves who realize, wait, I've got people here. I can connect with people who really understand and get this and can lift me up and provide me with support. So I think it's those three components that really make the fasting journey so successful.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's we talk about to be successful, you have to really have more than just knowledge, right? Because that's what everybody thinks. Oh, you tell them and then they'll do it. Like, no, that doesn't happen for anything, right? You can tell your kids to study, they won't, right? You can tell your kids to practice piano, they won't. You should exercise, you won't. So this is where you have to really be holistic, and this is where I think has been super important and probably not talked about very much at all for fasting. But fasting is actually no different than any other pursuit, whether it's athletics or whether it's piano or whatever, right? And you have to set up not only the structures, right? The habits that are going to lead you to be successful, the accountability and all that. And we'll get into that in a second, but also the emotional part of the journey, which is your mindsets and your attitudes, which is super important. And that's why, one of the key things you did with the fasting method is bring in a PhD of psychology to really say, hey, we need to help people with this. And just to go back a little bit, it's funny because we did this 10, 12 years ago. We in our clinic, we had 4 or 5 people in a group, and we'd sit and we discuss things, and you would lead that group, Megan. I still have people who come in and say, oh man, those were the best, like 10 years later, 12 years later, I still have people coming into the office because that all stopped during COVID, of course. But I still have people coming in and they're like, oh, those were the most helpful sessions. And it's like, yeah, because you're not just learning. Anybody can learn. You can go online, on YouTube, you can watch my videos, you can watch anything, you could buy a book, and you've written a few, I've written a few about intermittent fasting. You can learn exactly what you need to do. It certainly doesn't mean you're going to do it or be successful at it. The mindset is important, the group support, and that was one of the first things that we decided was that group support, how important it really is. And maybe you can just speak to that a little bit, sort of what the group brings in, because at the fasting method, of course, we do have this community that we're trying to build and sort of maybe take us through that a little bit, how that's going to help people with fasting. more than just saying, oh, this is why fasting is good for you. These are the risks. These are the things to watch out for, right? Because again, that yeah, anybody can get that anywhere for free, anytime. Like within 3 seconds, you could find information on that online, right? So what's so great about this community that is able to help people in such a profound way?
I think there's so many aspects to it. For a lot of people that have joined our community, they have a long history of weight loss, doing things alone, being given poor advice, like not being successful, spending about like hundreds of thousands of dollars on programs that don't work. I always talk about all those different calorie restriction diets. They're all like different brands of toilet paper. Just, some of them are soup based, some of them are fish based. They're all calorie restriction at the end of the day, and they don't work. And so people have tried all of this stuff and they feel so alone and so isolated. Nobody understands. They're broken. They hear about this fasting, they see some success stories online, and they're going to give it a try because they've got to do something for their health, but they don't think it will work for them. I mean, just bringing together like-minded individuals is so powerful, and you realize you're not alone, that you've got, thousands of people who are in your shoes, who know exactly how you feel, and that are working through this journey at various steps. So often what I hear when I host some of these large group meetings in our community, or larger group meetings, is someone new at the end of the meeting pipes up and they say, they just sometimes will cry and say, I felt so alone until today. And this is the first meeting that I joined. And I've heard people talk about being where I am today and how they're transforming, whether they've just conquered an issue with emotional eating, whether they just came off of a medication, wherever they are in their journey, and it gives them so much hope. And they get to hear how other people are experiencing this too, different tips, different strategies individuals use to deal with things, say emotional eating or stress eating, which is one of the biggest issues that we see right now when it comes to food and behaviors. And it gives them additional ideas about how maybe they can sort of where they are and what they're trying to do and how they might modify that, throughout their journey to see. But the camaraderie, the peer support, knowing that they're not alone, and it's a safe space to talk about this. Out there, you tell people you fast, and they can sometimes get quiet or think that they don't have the knowledge about it, and they can come down really hard on you. Not the fasting's become very popular, but not everybody in our own families and communities has really accepted it yet. And you're just there with people who are doing it. They're going through the motions with you. And that's really important, I think, for success. And another
Yeah,
thing,
that support is important because, of course, you hear all kinds of stuff in the media, right?
Mhm.
Remember a few months ago, there was this big thing about the American Heart Association was saying it was a terrible, terrible study. It was basically garbage, but
Yeah.
they said, oh, it increases your risk of heart disease by 91%, which is ridiculous, right? The entire thing was just stupid, right? Basically, they're saying that if you fast for 16 hours a day, you're going to increase your risk, but it was an association study, so of course that you couldn't actually make that conclusion, which didn't stop them from making that exact conclusion, which was so stupid. And they said even more stupid was, oh, if you eat for, I think it was like if you have a 12-hour fasting, something like that, if you eat from like 8 to 8 or something like that, you're going to increase your risk of heart disease by like 60%. It's like, that's just the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And online, of course, you hear all kinds of stuff, like all these so-called experts who are sort of turning against fasting. And it's like, yeah, because they're not real doctors out there, right? So there's all these people who say, oh, it's bad for you. And it's like, you look and they're like, okay, these people don't have any weight to lose. They don't have any serious disease. So what are you doing the fasting for? Is pointless. So you get all these influencers who are super fatty, right? You probably, have heard them. They're like, oh, they used to be pro fasting, now they're against fasting. It's like, but what were you doing it for? Like, were you just doing it for fun? Like, you don't have weight to lose, you don't have diabetes, you're not even really doing it for any reason, and you're doing these extended fasts. It's like, okay, that doesn't make any sense. So you hear all kinds of stuff. So that support is super important. And as you said, the groups really are useful. for that. So how about the I know that the fasting method has sort of changed up the community program a little bit, and I've seen it. It's super exciting. I think what they've done with being very much more holistic about the whole thing, trying to get people together, and then having these sort of weekly goals to get people into a sort of a cohort through. And I think that's a real important to the success of people. Just like, when people go through school, like you go through in a cohort, you do stuff together. It makes things, 100 times easier than doing it lone wolf style, right? So maybe you can tell us about the community program that you have and sort of how it's and the sort of new changes there.
Yeah, we started the online community in around 2018. And at that time, you and I were still in clinic, and we were traveling just a crazy amount over the weekends, trying to educate people and other healthcare providers on fasting. And then COVID happened, and everyone was kind of grounded. And I then got very involved in the community. We didn't have the clinic going on. We didn't have all of the travel going on. And I kind of jumped in. And what we saw was that people need to start at, ground zero together. A lot of people thought that they were real fasting experts because they had consumed so much stuff online. But one of the problems with fasting becoming popular, as we just talked about too, is that there is so much stuff online, and some of that's misinformation. So people were out there, not necessarily and implementing the best practices, consuming a lot of like artificially sweetened beverages throughout their fast, not really fasting much more than overnight. There were all these things that people thought they were real experts. And I just remember saying, okay, we need to do this group challenge where we start with point A. And we need to teach people how to do the fasting method style of fasting. And so I started doing these challenges every week throughout the initial lockdown phase. And the people who joined them, like, not only did they learn all of the information and how to do it properly, they connected with each other and they formed bonds. I had two ladies who were in that initial COVID lockdown challenge actually come and visit me and meet my son a couple of weeks ago. One flew across the country to meet another woman who is local, and they've got this great friendship and they travel all over together now. And it's great because they've got a buddy who lives the same lifestyle as them. So people really form these connections with each other as well. And then we were able to sort of see where we had to implement some of the strategies for the whole transformation with habits and mindset and emotional eating. And that's where Dr. Terry Lance on our team has just been so instrumental in meeting us along the lines with that information. So we did these challenges, and then we spun them off into something called a masterclass. And we realized that the masterclass participants, those who are coming in and forming these relationships, being directed to the same community meetings, the same support, having an exclusive forum thread where they could connect, having a lead expert like myself guide them through everything. They were just getting insane results in such a short period of time. And we thought, okay, this is what we need to do with the fasting method in the community. We had a self-guided program before, and I mean, all that information is going to be there. You can always go back and go through it at your own leisure once you've gone through it. But now we're essentially giving everybody that masterclass experience. They sign up, they're in a group, they can choose to engage with that group as much as they like. They have a dedicated key expert who's going to walk them through all the information. Every week they're being told, this is what you need to do, and this is how you can do it. And here are the resources that are going to help you be successful. And these are the meetings that you're going to connect with these live experts who are going to help clarify any questions, provide you with that support and guidance that you need, and teach you the real fasting method way of being successful at this. And again, it's holistic. It's not just do this fast and drink this while you fast or eat this when you eat. It's actual strategies that are going to help make this stick long term. And Now, I just got back from 2 weeks in Italy, and I lost 7 pounds while I was there. I had a little bit of baby weight I was going to start to lose when my son turned 1 because I've been nursing. And I went to a place like Italy and lost 7 pounds, at the sort of the start of my weight loss journey now that he's a year old. That's something that I think so many people out there don't think is possible, but you can really transform your habits and your mindset about food. And you know what? You can enjoy food. I love food. I love eating, but my relationship with it is so different. And I've got so many other healthy habits now that really support that. So I get to love food without ever feeling resentful for it, for how it affects my waistline. And it's really those unique strategies that we're going to teach you every week and break down for you that's going to help you not need a maintenance, not always be stuck in the cycle of having to lose 50 pounds over and over again. You're going to be able to do this. And then when you get there, we're going to continue to support you with those strategies because things are going to happen, family emergencies, crazy work travel, big celebrations, hopefully many big celebrations, but you need to learn some strategies for navigating that. And that's really what the fasting method is going to do for you long term, teach you how to transform.
Yeah,
And
I
you
mean, I see that they have sessions during the holidays about how to deal with the holidays, holiday weight gain, vacations, right? So
Mhm.
these are the real world things. Like the last thing you need somebody to do is tell you, oh, well, this is how you fast. And I was like, okay, but what about this, specific period, Thanksgiving or holidays or Christmas or whatever vacations? So yeah, absolutely. And the other thing you mentioned that I think was super, super important, which again, I just don't think people talk about it enough, is all these other things that go into the weight loss. Because it's you mentioned habits, mentioned emotional eating. And I think that's, so important because if you're eating because of your emotions, whether you're depressed or whether whatever it is, right? Or you have, say, food addictions or mindset, your mindset, again, I just don't think people talk about the mindset enough because the way you look at something changes completely when it's filtered through that mindset. So if you think of fasting as a punishment and a something that's really hard, then you'll never do it. But if you just simply change your mindset, and there are tools for this, right? And look at it as a freeing experience, as a liberating experience, so that you can now enjoy your food that you eat. It totally changes the way you see things. And so, again, people talk endlessly about, oh, you should eat Greek yogurt. It's like, okay, but that's not the point, right? The point was your emotional eating, was your habits. So maybe talk a little bit about the habits, the mindset, and the emotional eating. Because boy, I mean, I've listened to a lot of stuff online, right? And there's a lot of stuff about a lot of things, but not enough about emotions, group accountabilities, how groups help you. Like it's like anything else, like Alcoholics Anonymous, like Weight Watchers, it's the group that's the power, not the diet or Alcoholics Anonymous doesn't just go out there and say, drink less alcohol, right? They'd be the worst organization on earth, right? If they said that. No, it's about that community, emotions, emotional support. I mean, maybe just talk a little bit about that because I think that's just really something that deserves sort of extra attention.
Well, I mean, I'm an 84 baby, but I think even many generations before me, when people were going through a difficult time, we were comforted by our, elders or parents, grandparents with food. And, from such a young age, from just being able to consume solids, that's a lot of how I was taught to cope. I had a bad day at school. My mom would try to console me with food. We would have a birthday party. It would all be around food. And I mean, sometimes that's okay. I do definitely enjoy certain things. I don't completely restrict anything for my diet, but it could just be a lot when it's just constant family holidays, constant birthdays, especially if you're fortunate to live so close to your family. But from a young age, like this is how we're taught to deal with things, positive and negative that pop up in our lifestyle. And even still to today, if I have a sleepless night, and I talked to my mom. She's like, "Oh, make sure you make yourself something nice and comforting, to eat for a dinner and enjoy your food." Like that's still how she moms me at 40 years old. And we hear it from so many other individuals. This is how society's told us that we need to deal with this, and it becomes such a deeply ingrained habit. We do it habits are things that you do automatically. So we feel stressed or we feel down, or we get that job promotion and we want to celebrate. And these are all automatic cues that we want to celebrate or we want to feel better, sort of the end response. So we have this event that happens and that triggers the cue of wanting to celebrate or wanting to feel better. And over the years, how we've gotten from point A to point B is through eating. And it happens automatically. And that's what makes it a habit. And it's so difficult to sort of figure out alone, like how to navigate these habits or what else you can do or what thought processes or anchor habits that you can develop that help guide you towards creating a better strategy. Like we had one of our patients in the clinic years ago. She was a widow with a young son. She was working a couple of jobs and just totally burnt out. She was eating like garbage because life is so stressful. Her and her kid were at complete odds all of the time. And we decided that, she wanted to spend more time with her son and have a better relationship with her son. This was kind of her biggest stressor at the moment that was forcing her eating to be awful. And she really believed going on a vacation with her son would be the game changing for her. And so one thing that we came up with in the group, and this is again power of the group, is this idea that every time she kept this jar in her kitchen next to the pantry. And anytime she felt so stressed or triggered that she was going to go in the pantry, she would see this jar and she would be stopped. That would help break the cycle of the habit of her automatically going into the cupboard. And then she would put like a dollar or $2 into the jar. And over time, it would be her way of saving. So she didn't go into the cupboard. She saw this jar, stopped herself. She put whatever pocket change she had in it. And then over the course of a couple of months, she had enough money to take her son on a trip. They went to the Dominican Republic. And she kept doing this and kept doing this. And she was losing weight and she was getting better health results. And she actually, ended up saving a ton of money because then her and her son stopped eating all of this junk food, all of this soda, all these things she was spending extra money on. She quit one of her 2 jobs that she had. And her son went on like 4 trips over the course of 1 year together. And it's just amazing. And this is something that we came out with the group, with people who had similar experiences with different ideas and came together. And it was just so wild to me to see this transformation with her. And now we're doing that on a global scale. Like you don't have to be in Toronto. You don't have to come to our clinic to have that. You can connect in your car if you want. If you can connect on your public transport, especially if you're on the bus on the way home and you're going to have to walk past a drive-through and you're having a day, jump into a meeting. Share it. Even if you can't speak, type it in the chat box. There's going to be 15 people that come in there with an idea of how to get around that, how to circumvent it, and how to be
This is actually
successful.
so important because you have to remember that it's not about willpower. Everybody says it's about willpower, right? But it was about putting that jar right there so that you could break it. And it's just a little nudge, right? And there's so many of these. You have to identify what the trigger is, figure out what the cue is, and then see if you can break it somehow. Another thing that I talk about sometimes is coffee, right? When you go to get coffee, you go to, whatever coffee shop, but there's always donuts and muffins and cookies, right? And you don't have to be a genius to figure out that those cookies and those donuts are not useful to you. So, then you have to try and figure out, okay, well, I want to go get coffee, but I wind up getting a donut too. Well, what do you do? Well, what you can do is just order on your app. So instead of being tempted, like when you're saying, I want a coffee, you can just go, I'm not going to stand in line anymore at the coffee store. I'm going to order it on my app. That way, when you go, you pick it up, you're no longer tempted by those cookies that are sitting right there, and the smells coming in and all this stuff, right? So it's not about willpower, it's about that. Or for example, one other fellow, what they decided to do was brush your teeth, early. So after dinner, you'd brush your teeth. That way, if you wanted to eat something, because late night snacking was a problem, they'd be like, well, now I'm gonna have to brush my teeth again. I don't really want it that bad. And it was just that cute, that little thing that just nudges you away from those things that and there's no denying it's bad for you. All those late night snacks, all those cookies and donuts, like that's not controversial. You shouldn't be eating those. But everybody says, "Oh, it's about willpower. Willpower. You got to, do that." It's like, no, it's not about willpower. This whole idea of gutting it out is just so not the way we function as human beings. We function on these little nudges that push us this way and that way. And it's the availability, the easy availability of snacks, the fact that food is everywhere, the fact that, fast food is everywhere, the smells, those are the things. So those are the things that are really important. And I know you studied a lot about habits. And those habits, I tell you, that's probably why you were able to lose weight in Italy. I mean, it's the same for me too. I mean, I got in the habit of eating sort of 2 meals a day instead of 3 meals a day. And now it just feels a little strange. So even when I go on vacation and some hotels give you breakfast, and I don't normally eat breakfast, but if it's I'm with my family and everybody gets free breakfast, I'll have breakfast. But then I don't have lunch. And now everybody's so used to that, in my family anyway, they're so used to that when we have the breakfast, we just don't eat lunch, which of course makes it super easy to not gain that weight, right? It's like it's complete change. So those habits are super important. And maybe also talk about the coaching that you offer, because I think this is a really unique aspect of the fasting method. And again, to me, something that is completely under utilized overall. Because if you think about coaching, there's all kinds of coaching, right? There's personal trainers, there's CEO coaches, there's life coaches, there's business coaches. And why do they exist? Because they're useful. That's why they exist. So, maybe talk about a bit about our coaching program, the fasting method coaching program, because I think I don't see that anywhere. And I think it's like, boy, if you want to invest in your health, I don't think you'll get any greater return for anything.
Yeah, so the fasting method offers one-on-one coaching and small group coaching. I think both can be very powerful. It depends on where you are with your journey. If you're unsure which would be the best fit for you, we do offer complimentary intake assessments with one of our coaches. You can pick the coach, or we can help you select the right person to speak to, and you can figure out which of those two avenues is best for you. But at the end of the day, the coach provides so much. You get that accountability partner, someone that you've got to show up and say, hey, this is how the last week or two have gone. And that really makes a big difference. Even my very own best friend, he gets all of this. He understands all of this. He's a very successful guy. And he said, and he has access to me, but he doesn't want to bug me. I said, what, I'm going to sign up with one of your coaches, because it's not that I don't know what to do. He's like, I need someone to hold me accountable at the end of the day. So he's working with a coach on our team, Coach Bethany, and she messaged me on Monday morning saying he had just lifted the most weight that he's ever lifted at the gym. And his body fat's the lowest body fat percentage that it's been, and aches and pains that he had have totally disappeared. And also he had severe fatty liver, and now it's mild fatty liver. It's barely mild fatty liver. So he's made huge strains. And so this is a guy, very, very successful lawyer in Toronto. And gets all this, but life gets busy, and just having that person to be accountable to makes a huge difference. And he wouldn't bother me, but I just watched him kind of flounder for a year, and then I was so relieved. I kept hinting at the coach, and I'm really glad he did it, because in a few months it's radically changed his life all around for the better. But then you also have the coach who's the expert, and everyone on our team has walked the walk. We've all had our own journey and experience with this, which has led us to these career transformations. I'm really wanting to help individuals. So not only have we walked the walk, but we have experience working with tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. So, if you're, say, a perimenopausal woman who's been like, just thinking that you have to fast for 5 days a week and that's the only way that you can lose weight, and that you're barely eating any food on top of that, and that you're gaining weight at the end of the day, we can say, hey, do you know what? There's these strategies for perimenopausal women that work a lot better for this particular category. And maybe we'll shift into some 36-hour fasts, and this is how we'll maybe structure your diet. So we can, coaches with our knowledge on what to do can definitely shorten your journey from point A to point B and get you to your goals a lot faster, rather than you just sort of going through all this information. And it's great. We've got so much free information and you can absolutely go through it. But if you're just kind of troubleshoot all over the course, it could take a long time, and we don't want this to take a long time. It doesn't need to take a long time to get that fat off or to improve these metabolic health markers to a better place. So that's something that a coach does. But a coach also, again, we've been through this too ourselves. We can recognize these habits. We can recognize these mindset patterns and these emotional and stress eating patterns. We've got a whole tool chest of ideas and strategies, like keeping that jar next to the pantry, all these different things that you can do to help shift these habits, to help change the mindset around certain things, and to help find new strategies, successful strategies that are unique to you when it comes to emotional eating and stress eating as well. So the coaching is really very sort of personalized. We look at you as an individual, your metabolic health, and also just sort of your emotional health and where you are with food. And we can really personalize a program for you that leaves you at the end of the day, really transforming not just your metabolic health and your weight, but also really transforming your relationship and mindset and habits with food for long-term success.
Yeah, because habits are very individual. Like everybody has different habits. And the thing about the habit is that you don't need willpower, right? And again, it's so powerful because it's the things you do day in and day out that are going to make the difference, right? Like brushing your teeth, right? Who even thinks about it, right? We wake up, gotta brush your teeth. Go to bed, gotta brush your teeth, right? It's just a habit. It's not like I have to tell myself, oh, what was I going to do again? Oh yeah, brush my teeth. Like, no, these are the habits. So if you get in the habit of having a period of fasting, you get in the habit of walking after dinner, you get in the habit of these things. They're personal because not everybody will do the same thing. Like, and that's where the coaching really helps. So yeah, so important. And really, the idea is that it's an investment in your own well-being. And I don't know that, people think about it that way, but you see personal trainers, for example, who needs to know how to exercise? Nobody. Everybody knows how to exercise. You can find it in 3 seconds. But it's that person that's going to show up, and then you're like, okay, well, I don't want to let this person down. So then it holds you accountable. They can change your, oh, well, we should do this instead of this, and then you follow them, right? One other last thing I want to touch upon, because you're a real expert in this, and you wrote a book about fasting for women, specifically, is what's the sort of nuance? Because this question gets asked a lot about fasting for women, because there are a few differences, and there's not a lot of data, because I've looked. There's not a lot of studies on it, so it all comes down to sort of your experience, and you have probably more experience than anybody else. So what are the things you have to look out for? And then specifically in perimenopausal women, because that's, of course, an area, a period of time where a lot of women struggle. I don't know if they know this, but a lot of women, like if you look at periods of time where people gain weight, perimenopause is actually one of the sort of big areas where women gain weight. It's just, and if this is, a phenomenon that's not one person, it's like when you look across millions of people in the United States, this is the pattern that you find in everybody. So how is fasting different for women, and how can they make it successful?
Yeah. Well, first of all, if you're a woman out there, regardless of your age, you can have incredible success with fasting. But like Jason mentioned, there are certain nuances at certain phases throughout the female hormonal lifespan. So with postmenopausal women, we find that they could tackle any sort of fasting regimen. Usually, even if they want to be on sort of a more intense ketogenic diet simultaneously, they get phenomenal results, very equivalent results as well to our male counterparts of the same age group at that particular time. But when women are cycling or women are going through hormonal changes like perimenopause, there's certain strategies that can definitely help. Now, if we have a cycling woman who comes in with pretty severe PCOS, I do treat them like a diabetic. We do some more intensive therapeutic fasts, like 24 to 42 hours, 2 to 3 times a week. We do try to keep the carbs pretty low. But once we've sort of tackled the PCOS largely, then we try to make the fasting sort of fit with the cycle better. And the reason why is that there are these different hormonal fluctuations at the different points in the female cycle. Some of them make it harder to lose weight. Some of them make it easier to lose weight. Some of them make it easier to fast and more difficult to fast. That first phase of the cycle, before ovulation, when your cycle starts, is called the luteal phase or the follicular phase. And during the follicular phase, women tend to feel a lot better hormonally. Our appetites tend to be a bit suppressed. We're much more insulin sensitive during that particular part of the cycle. Women will experience more fat loss, and it's easier for them to do longer fasts. Then our cycle is punctuated by ovulation, and then we enter into the luteal phase of our cycle, and the hormones change. And this particular change, we're a little bit more insulin resistant. Our appetites are a little bit more substantial during this particular time of the cycle. And when women would try to force themselves to do longer fasts during this part of the cycle, it would be more difficult. They wouldn't really be getting as much results as they would if they had done it earlier on in the cycle. And they just felt very defeated. And then some women that were striving for fertility were having issues, already previously having issues with lower progesterone levels from PCOS. And that, was not necessarily getting better. So we focus with the cycling woman on doing more intensive fasting during the first half of the cycle. That's where we really try to maximize fat loss. And the second half of the cycle, when women just aren't feeling as wonderful in general hormonally and we're struggling with appetite, we focus on good time restricted eating, some shorter fasts. And I always say it's important to practice eating because you're not going to fast for these crazy lengths of time forever. Like you do enter the world of eating, and this is how we focus on building those habits and addressing those mindset. We have to have exposure to eating in order to do so. So this is huge. Like this part of the cycle, we're learning all these great eating things that we need to carry on long-term for success. So women feel more successful and they tend to go along with their bodies and their hormones better. And they do see pretty good fat loss as well during this half of the cycle too. Perimenopausal women, we see them, it's a crazy time hormonally. We end up usually in this estrogen dominant state, which promotes insulin resistance and fat trapping just due to sort of our body's natural decline in progesterone production. And we see a drop in testosterone production, but our hormones are still fluctuating all over the place. Our thyroid takes a bit of a kick during this time. Most women experience some degree of hypothyroidism during this time. It's not necessarily the true hypothyroidism that we see, but their thyroids can struggle. Sometimes they'll do longer fasts, but then they end up getting a low blood sugar here and there. So when we work with these women, we take a look at where each one of them is in their hormonal journey. Maybe sometimes we have periods of more consistent patterns with their hormones that are punctuated with a little bit more erratic times and shifts happening, or maybe they're kind of in the middle of the storm. Unfortunately, that happens. And we customize a program for them, making sure that they are eating enough, making sure that, we're not consuming anything during the fast that might be limiting to it as well. So with these women in this group, we tend to do a lot more 36-hour fasts in general and focus a lot on nutrition and making sure they're getting adequate nutrition. I think a big problem also in this demographic as well is that they've done years and years of calorie restriction diets. And those habits still kind of stick when you start to fast, and it's difficult to break in this particular age group right now. And so, teaching them that good, healthy foods, good, healthy fats, good, healthy proteins can be their friend, and consuming them and eating sensibly can really aid in their fat loss, makes a big difference as well. We see it stabilize their thyroid function a lot, and they're still doing 36 hours of fasting or 42 hours of fasting. It's not that they're doing quite a good amount of fasting. So it's not that they can't fast. They're doing lots of fasting, but we're also addressing the nutrition just to help support the thyroid and support the hormones, so they don't see these weird changes in blood sugar levels or other hormonal things. And women can go through perimenopause without gaining weight, or if they've gained weight or never lost that baby weight, and are now looking to lose it because their kids are 13, and they've now got their time again, but now they're going through perimenopause, and they've got this roadblock. It's totally possible to lose all of that weight. Again, we work with people depending where they are and what their hormonal fluctuations might be at this particular time frame.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to see things because, at some point you do have to eat, of course, right? So the food is really important. And same thing with like what you said about the celebrations. People throughout history have always celebrated with a feast or whatever. We're not trying to change that, right? We're not trying to invent a whole new way of this and that. We're just trying to get back to those old ways. That is, good food, unprocessed food with the fasting. That's sort of the basics. We forget that sometimes. And that's where I think the new community program every week is there's eating goals, there's fasting goals, and there's mindset goals, right? Covers all those things because sometimes people say, oh, you join this diet and it's all about low calorie, which is sort of the dominant sort of paradigm, which I think is stupid, but it is what it is. But the point is that certain calories are different, right? Certain calories, say you eat cookies, will stimulate different hormones. Therefore, your body's going to respond differently. Certain calories, if you eat an egg versus cookies, you'll have different hormonal response. And that's important because that's what drives our body to respond. Just like with the women, you have higher levels of certain hormones at different periods of the cycle. You have higher levels of hormones throughout your life, like estrogen versus, perimenopause, estrogen tends to fall. Even for men, their testosterone tends to fall over time and stuff. So there are changes, and hormones is how our body does it. So, I think that's, and if you want to change the way your body is working, then you got to change the hormones because everything is controlled through hormones. That's just human physiology. I don't know why everybody seems to find that concept difficult to understand, but it's true, and that's why I think it's such a powerful paradigm to be thinking about. Like it's the foods that you eat, it's the fasting periods, and it's the way that your attitudes, your habits, and so on. It's not willpower. I think people have as much willpower as they always had. It's not different, right? It's about what's tempting you. It's about those little nudges and habits that can make a big, big difference. So thanks very much, Megan. Just if people want to find you online or find the program, where would they look?
Yeah, so you can go to the internet and search thefastingmethod.com, and you'll find all information about our community, all information about our coaching program. We've got 1 billion blogs and podcasts that are all easily accessible. We've got some free quick guides for you to download as well, and links to all of our social media platforms. If you want to test the waters out, get to know our team a bit better before diving in. But again, always setting up, you can set up a free consultation or intake assessment with any of our coaches to learn more as well.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jason.
Beautiful.
All right, I think we're good.
That was great, guys. Thank you so much for your time. I think I didn't hear a single thing that we need to edit, so we're going to be smooth sailing. Megan, just so that you know, this is going live in January, so we got a little bit of time here. I'm probably going to ping you again late November, maybe early December, just to let you know about the promotion schedule and things like that. But yeah, I think we're ready to go. Did you have any questions before I let you enjoy the rest of your Friday?
No, thank you so much, Renee.
Awesome. Thank you
Okay,
both.
thanks, Renee. Megan, just before you leave, I'll give you a call
Okay.
on the phone. Okay.
Sure. Thanks, Jason.
Okay.
Bye,
Thanks.
everyone.
Thank you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.